Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're looking at hip-hop and more specifically, Drake.
Yeah, seems like Drake's in a pretty interesting spot in his career, and you've provided some good articles all from February 24th this year about it.
For sure, and it's not just his music. We've got this whole rivalry with Kendrick Lamar to unpack too, so let's get into it.
Sounds good.
So first up, let's talk about this new album he dropped with PartyNextDoor.
Right.
It went straight to #1 on the Billboard 200.
Yep.
That's album number 14 for him at the top of the charts. That's insane. I mean, is that as wild to you as it is to me?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely up there with the greats. It actually ties him with Taylor Swift and Jay-Z for second most #1 albums.
Oh, wow.
Just behind the Beatles.
The Beatles are in a whole other league, though.
For sure. But what's interesting is this is all happening while he's got this feud going on with Kendrick Lamar.
Yep. Okay, before we get to that, though, I do want to mention this is actually Drake's third collaborative project to hit #1.
Right.
We had Her Loss with 21 Savage, and then What a Time to Be Alive with Future. He just can't seem to miss when he teams up with someone.
It's true.
So what do you think it is about these collabs? What's the secret sauce?
Well, I think he's always been really smart about who he works with.
Okay.
You know, he picks artists who bring something different to the table but also fit with his style.
Makes sense.
Like with 20 on Savage, it was that raw energy and street cred.
Yeah.
And with Future, it was that trap sound that he's known for. And now with PartyNextDoor, it's that smooth R&B vibe.
So he's hitting all these different lanes.
Yeah, it's a really good way to broaden his sound and reach different people, too.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so let's get into this Kendrick Lamar thing.
Let's do.
It's getting kind of heated, right?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely escalated, especially since Lamar dropped that Not Like Us track.
The one that won the Grammy.
Yeah, that one, it seems like that one really got under Drake's skin.
I could see why.
And it wasn't just a hit with the critics, it blew up everywhere. Like even Taylor Swift and Beyonce were dancing to it at the Grammys.
Oh, wow.
And then Lamar performed it at the Super Bowl halftime show.
Okay, yeah, that's got to hurt.
Right. Huge audience for that one.
Yeah, no, that's a big stage to call someone out on. So what's Drake doing about it? He's not really known for just letting stuff slide.
True, he's not, but it seems like he's going for more of a strategic approach this time around.
Oh, really? So how's he playing this?
Well, instead of going back and forth with diss tracks, he seems to be shifting the narrative a bit, you know, trying to change the story.
Okay, so what's the new story then?
It looks like he's leaning into a softer image, kind of bringing back that sensitive vibe he had in his earlier stuff.
Interesting.
And he's really playing up the nostalgia factor, too, you know, reminding everyone of his history and all the hits he's had over the years.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's been around forever.
Right, like a long time. So do you think this is just a business move, or is there a real artistic shift happening here?
That's a good question. I mean, he's always been really good at marketing himself.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I do think there's got to be some real creative drive there, too.
Probably a bit of both, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. So is he basically playing the long game here?
Seems like it.
Instead of getting caught up in this battle with Kendrick, he's focusing on himself and reminding everyone why they became fans in the first place.
Exactly. And if you look at what he's been doing, it's working. His tour in Australia was a massive success.
Really?
Yeah, and he really emphasized how long he's been doing this. He even said Drizzy Drake is very much still alive.
Oh.
And then he's been doing these karaoke sets of his old hits, leaning into that nostalgia.
Wow.
And get this, he's doing a 3-night takeover of the Wireless Festival in London, each night dedicated to a different era of his career.
Okay, that's next level.
Right.
But what about the new album itself? How does that fit into all of this?
Well, it's got that R&B sound that was really big in his earlier stuff.
Oh, interesting. So he's kind of going back to his roots.
Yeah, it's like he's intentionally tapping into that sound that made him a star in the first place.
Smart move. So the people get what they want, a little bit of old Drake mixed with the new stuff.
Exactly.
So what are the Chris saying about all of this? Are they on board with this new direction, or do they think it's a step backwards?
It's kind of a mixed bag. Some reviewers are loving it. They're saying it's a return to form and praising the lyrics and the familiar sound.
That's cool.
But then you have others who are saying it feels uninspired and that he's lost that innovative edge he used to have.
So they're saying he's selling out.
Kind of, yeah. Like he's just trying to please the old fans and get back on top.
But the album still went to #1 even with those mixed reviews, right?
Exactly. And that says a lot.
Yeah, it means his core fan base is still there for him.
Definitely. It's a good sign.
So Drake's in a tough spot. He's trying to evolve as an artist, but he's also got Kendrick right there, and he's trying to stay true to his sound.
It's a tricky balance.
It is, but what do you think this all means for his career? Going forward, can he stay on top?
That's the big question, isn't it? Only time will tell what these decisions will lead to. But one thing's for sure, Drake is really good at reinventing himself.
That's true. He always seems to adapt.
Yeah, and that's what keeps him relevant. He's always evolving. He's not afraid to try new things, and that makes him a really interesting artist to follow.
Yeah, definitely. So let's zoom out for a second and think about the bigger picture. What does Drake's situation tell us about the music industry as a whole?
That's a great question because, in a way, his career is kind of a mini version of what all artists are going through today.
How so?
Well, the music industry is a constantly changing, trends come and go, and people's attention spans are so short.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up.
It is, and artists have to be more creative and adaptable than ever before if they want to stay relevant.
It's not enough to just make good music anymore.
No, you have to be doing so much more. You've got to be innovating, engaging with your fans, building a brand, and social media is a huge part of that now.
For sure, social media is everything.
And Drake's really good at all of that.
Yeah, he's a master.
He knows how to create a story, generate hype, keep his name out there, and on top of that, he's a smart businessman.
Yeah, he's got that whole empire going on.
Right, he's got his own record label, Loving Line. He's even involved in tech now. He's not just a musician anymore, he's an entrepreneur.
That's wild. So you mentioned earlier that some critics are calling this new album a return to his roots.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a trend we're seeing more of across the industry?
Definitely nostalgia is a big thing in music, and I think a lot of artists are realizing that there's something special about those sounds and feelings from the past.
It's like comfort food.
It is, and in a world that's constantly changing, I think people really crave that familiarity and comfort.
But it's not just about copying the past, right?
No, it's about taking those classic elements and mixing them with new sounds to create something fresh.
So it's about moving forward but remembering where you came from.
Yeah, finding that balance between nostalgia and innovation.
And you think Jake's doing a good job of that?
I think so. He's not afraid to experiment, but he also knows it's important to stay connected to his core fans and his legacy. It's a hard balance to strike.
It is. So I'm curious, have you noticed anything similar in your own musical tastes lately? Are there any artists from your past that you've rediscovered or who you think are doing a good job of blending old and new sounds?
It's funny you should ask that. I have actually been listening to a lot of 90s hip-hop lately.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's something about that raw energy, and the lyrics were so good back then. I don't know, it's just really captivating.
Yeah, the 90s were a huge time for hip-hop. So many classics came out of that era.
Totally.
Do you see any connections between that scene back then and what's happening now with guys like Drake and Kendrick?
Oh, definitely. Hip-hop has always been about competition, from the rap battles in the Bronx to that whole East Coast, West Coast thing in the 90s.
Right.
Those battles pushed everyone to be better, and I think we're seeing that again with Drake and Kendrick.
Yeah, it's like iron's sharpens iron, right?
Exactly, but the stakes are way higher now with social media and everything. It's so much harder to stay on top.
For sure. Okay, so you brought up the East Coast, West Coast rivalry. That was a wild time.
It was.
Do you think it's similar to what's going on with Drake and Kendrick?
I mean, there are some similarities for sure. It's definitely a clash of styles and personalities.
Right.
But I think the Drake-Kendrick thing is a little more complex.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's not just about where you're from or who's the better lyricist.
Yeah.
It's more about two different visions for hip-hop, two different ideas about what success looks like.
That's interesting. So how would you define those two visions? What are Drake and Kendrick each trying to do?
Well, I think people see Kendrick as the more conscious rapper,
Okay.
He's not afraid to talk about social issues and challenge the way things are. His music is really thought-provoking and complex.
Mm-hmm.
He's really pushing the boundaries of what hip-hop can be.
So he's the intellectual, the revolutionary. What about Drake then?
Drake has always been more focused on the commercial side. He's really good at making catchy music that appeals to a lot of people.
Right, he's got the hits.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to experiment with different genres either. He's kind of blurring the lines between hip-hop and pop.
So their rivalry is kind of a reflection of this bigger debate about the role of hip-hop. Is it supposed to be about raising awareness and making social commentary? Or is it about entertainment and pushing the boundaries of pop music?
Exactly, and I think both sides have valid points. Hip-hop is such a diverse genre.
True.
There's room for all kinds of voices and perspectives.
Yeah, it's not about one being better than the other. It's about appreciating all the different ways hip-hop to be expressed.
For sure, and I think this rivalry, even though it seems tense, is actually a good thing for hip-hop overall.
How so?
Because it's pushing both Drake and Kendrick to be better, to constantly innovate and try new things.
Yeah, that competition can be a motivator.
It definitely can. So we've covered a lot today. Drake's new album, his rivalry with Kendrick, and the history of hip-hop and how the music industry is changing.
It's been a good conversation.
It has. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few things to think about.
Okay, shoot.
First, what do you think about Drake's move towards nostalgia? Is it a genuine artistic shift, or is he just trying to stay relevant?
It's probably a bit of both, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, and second, what does this rivalry between Drake and Kendrick tell us about the future of hip-hop?
Ooh, good question.
Will it keep being this genre that thrives on competition and pushing boundaries, or will it become more commercialized and less diverse?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is. And lastly, what do you personally connect with most in Drake's music?
Yeah, what speaks to you?
Is it the lyrics, the melodies, or the way he connects with so many people?
Those are great questions to leave our listeners with.
They are. It's been awesome diving into all of this with you.
Likewise, and to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Keep exploring these artists and their music and the hip-hop world in general. Until next time.